Greetings, chess players, and welcome to Analyze That, the chess program where you send me games via email and I analyze that. Today's first game comes from CutieCat227, and the game is between Tdspin and CutieCat227 on chess.com, and it's from our free online summer camp we did just last week. Let's see what happens. Tdspin starts with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, all good here. Bishop c5, c3, the Yoko piano, knight f6, white plays d4, ex d4, cx d4. So far so good based on 4 centuries of theory. Bishop b6. Bishop b4 is really the overwhelming favorite here. And because I mentioned, the 4 centuries of theory, let's take a look at an old game. First one that comes to memory. Bishop b4, and then knight c3. Greco had the white pieces in this. Gioacchino Greco, knight takes e4. You can see our video on him later. White castles to get out of the pin. Knight takes, pawn takes, bishop takes, c3. And then Greco played queen b3. Black played bishop takes d4. If I remember correctly, hopefully I don't mess this up. Bishop takes f7 check. King went to f8. Oh yeah, I remember this now. Bishop g5, attacking the queen, developing with a threat. Bishop comes back to f6. And then it was rook a to e1. That's right. I almost moved the wrong rook there. Black can play knight e7 to block the rook from going to e8. But then white can play bishop h5, creating another checkmate threat on f7. Knight g6, blocking that. But then Greco played knight e5. Again, creating this checkmate threat on f7. So knight takes e5, rook takes e5. Oh, knight takes e5. Yeah, knight takes e5. I was trying to give white 2 moves in a row. Rook takes e5. And now black plays g6, and Greco played bishop h6 check. What are you doing, Chris? Not bishop takes g6. And then bishop g7, blocking the check, rook f5. Really kind of a neat game here by Greco. Check, gx f5, and then queen f7, checkmate. Like I said, 4 centuries of theory. That comes from a game Greco played. I believe that was 1620 versus a unknown opponent. But I digress. That is not why we are here. We are here to look at Tdspin versus CutieCat. So let's get back to that. Boom, 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 boom. D4, ex d4, cx d4. Oh, that's right. She played bishop b6, which is, bishop b4 is a better move, right? And then white plays knight c3. And maybe, honestly, I'm going to say knight c3. I think I played a game once that went something like e5, and then black played d5, and I want to say, yeah, I did. That's right, yeah, I remember this game now. Ex f6, dx c4, then white plays d5. So we're pushing our advantage with our center pawns. Queen takes f6, dx c6, and then both sides castled. And then my opponent played qx c6, and I played, I think, knight e5, queen c5, and then I played bishop f4, and my opponent played bishop e6, knight c3, and they played rook a d8. So you remember interesting games for a long time. Then I played queen f3. I played this at a summer camp in 2009, at a summer camp in Fremont, California. And I liked White's position here. I liked White's position. Let's see. But getting back, again, I digress. Tdspin did not push his pawn forward, which I think he probably should have. But instead, he played it. He played an okay move. It's developing a knight to c3. Black castles, white castles. Black plays d6 to stop that pawn from moving forward. Bishop g5, pinning the knight. Bishop g4, pinning the knight. h3, putting the question to the bishop. Bishop takes, queen takes, and then bishop takes d4. You know, I have to wonder if knight takes d4 would be a better move here, because you're attacking the queen when you do it, so you get a little bit more, you grab the initiative by attacking the queen. But Cutie Cat played bishop takes d4, not terrible though. It's a fine move. Rook a to d1, getting the rook involved in the game. Knight e5. Now that is an interesting move. That is an interesting move. Creates some nice complexities. I mean, black I guess had some other options here that are worth exploring. They could have tried maybe bishop takes, pawn takes, right, and then knight e5. So then you're attacking the queen, and you've created a pawn weakness. Maybe you'll end up winning a pawn at some point. I'd probably attack that bishop first, and then attack the bishop again. Yeah, that looks fine to me. But no, she played knight e5, and it's interesting. It is an interesting move. It's a nice fork. It's a nice fork. I don't see anything wrong with it. White plays queen e2, of course, saving the queen, defending the bishop. Bishop takes c3. Creates that long-term pawn weakness for white we were just discussing a moment ago. Pawn takes c3. Then knight takes c4. Really, okay. You know, it's a good move, but I wonder, now that we've created those long-term pawn weaknesses over here, a2 and c3, if it would behoove us, if it would behoove black to keep the knights on the board, try and keep some pieces on the board, try and win one of these weak pawns. All right, so knight takes c4. Queen takes c4. Black plays queen e7. The rooks are unified. Nice. Rook fe1. So we have a kind of a cool position here. I like it. Both players have played fairly well. White pieces are better, but black has a much better pawn structure. So it should be interesting to see who comes out ahead. White has these two nice rooks with a lot of good squares in these center files. The queen, bishop pinning the knight. Black's rook's not so good, but check out their pawns. They're all connected. White's pawns, no, not connected. So we've got what we call imbalances. They say it's roughly equal, but it's imbalanced, and that's nice. Black plays pawn c5. Maybe instead of moving pawns forward without real purpose, black should have been activating the rooks. But okay, let's keep going. White plays queen b5. Black plays pawn b6. Queen c6. Really not sure what the queen's doing. Oh, of course, the queen's threatening. What am I saying? The queen's threatening d6. Rook and queen are added on d6. Queen e5. Okay, so we aren't defending d6, but we are attacking the bishop. Queen's threatening the bishop. Oh dear. That is a huge mistake. You win the pawn, Tdspin, you won the pawn, but you lose a piece, right? So black capitalizes on white's mistake easily. Pawn to f4, that's a good move. That's a good move. Get things get things moving around, try and get back into the, create threats, try and get back into this. Queen G3, Pawn E5, creating more threats. And black plays Rook F, oh no, oh no. Cutie cat, I feel bad for you. You played such a nice game. I see these sorts of outcomes far too often from younger chess players. It was a really nice game, and then it can be wrecked by just one careless move. So here we've got a situation where white has, because of the battery, 2 attackers on D8, but black only has 1 defender. So I think we know what happens now. Check, take, check, block, checkmate. Good game, Tdspin. Your huge mistake, obviously, was taking the pawn and losing the bishop. An important loss for Cutie Cat, I think, and an important lesson. If you want to win a 1 endgame, you got to neutralize your opponent's attacking chances and always analyze all checks, captures, and threats. Remember, games aren't won until they are over. You can be winning, but they aren't won until they are over. All right, let's look at another game now. We're going to look at a game, Musta 23 versus Chess Striker 23. Interesting that both guys have 23 in their name. It's MUSTAFAKBULUT 23. I may have mispronounced that, but Chess Striker against Chess Striker 23. Let's see. Let's see what happens. So I'll just call him Musta. Musta plays E4. Chess Striker plays E5. Queen F3. Uh-oh. When somebody brings their queen out early, they're probably targeting the belly button on F7. Black plays knight C6, bishop C4. So trying for a scholar's mate, right? Trying to play queen to F7, checkmate. Black could play queen F6 or knight F6 here. Knight F6, that stops it. Pawn D3. And let's see, knight D4. Black is already punishing white for attempting the scholar's mate here. This is a nice fork. The knight's threatening C2 and, more importantly, F3. So white's going to have to retreat with queen D1, and they do. And then black plays B5. Nice, keeping the initiative. Forcing white to make another concession, bishop b3. A5, going to threaten a4, and then c6 after. So, you know, threatening, if white just ignores things, black could play a4, bishop d5, and then pawn c6, trying to trap the bishop there. And bishop g5, interesting. That's a developing move. I think I probably would have just played c3 here, though. If I'm white, then my bishop's not getting trapped, and I'm threatening black's knight. So, yeah, they could take, and would I take with my queen or my pawn here? I'd probably take with my pawn because it opens up my my rook file. All right. So bishop g5, though, is after a5, after 6 a5, 7 bishop g5. And then there's that a4 move. And bishop d5 we predicted. Pawn c6 we predicted. So the bishop is trapped. What should white do? Analyze all checks, captures, and threats. That's not quite it. I was hoping white would spot that c3 also traps black's knight. So then if black takes your bishop, you take their knight. They could say Chekaruski. You could say knight d2. They could play d6. What, knight f3 maybe, then bishop g4. And then just castle, maybe. Right? And we have a game where black has a very slight edge, I would say. A very slight edge. But that's not what happened. After 8c6, trapping the bishop, white plays bishop takes f6, which allows black to bring their queen in the game. Queen takes f6. It gets rid of their own pin, allows black to develop a piece. Oh, and then bishop takes f7. So he noticed his bishop was trapped, but he did not notice, Musta did not notice that he could create a threat of his own. So you gotta, when you're in trouble, you gotta, at all times, you gotta analyze checks, captures, threats. All right. So he plays bishop takes f7, and then king or queen takes looks fine here, but king takes is what was played. Knight f3, knight takes f3 because you're head material. Clearly you are not going to take back with your queen because then white would be down material and trading queens. Exactly what they don't want to do. So g takes f3, good job, Musta. Black plays king g8. Chess striker, I'm not sure you really need to do that. Not sure you really need to do that at all. You're trying to get your king safe, but your king's relatively safe anyhow. You know, if I'm playing black here, I probably play bishop c5. Maybe white plays knight d2. Maybe I play rook f8. Then maybe queen e2. And now you could play king g8, and your rook and queen are like lined up. You've got a nice battery coming down the f-file. Your bishop's employed in the game. It's a much better way of doing things. All right. So after gx f3, chess striker played 12, king g8. Let's see. White castles. Oh, that's not really a secure location for the king. I don't think castling here is very beneficial to white. Queen g5. Black immediately takes advantage of that insecurity. King h1, pawn d6. Looks like preparing to bring the other bishop out. Sure, why not? Rook g1, good move, Musta. Attacking the queen and indirectly putting pressure on the king. Qh4, queen f1, almost a good move, but we have to remember that black can bring their bishop out. Chess striker can bring his bishop to h3, attacking the queen. The queen would have to go back someplace. And that's exactly what happens, actually. Bishop h3, queen e1, queen f4. Hey, these are good moves, chess striker. You're using some good technique here. Knight d2, bishop e7, pawn to c4. Presumably trying to open up a file, so you can get your other rook here on a1 in the game somehow. I guess that's all right. Bx c4. No, knight takes c4 is not a good idea. Because remember, your knight is defending f3. So if you take this pawn with your knight, then black can, let's see if he does. Yep, chess striker plays queen takes f3, and then rook g2, queen takes g2, checkmate. Yeah, that was not a happy finish. Rook g2 is forced, by the way, right? It's not that white played a bad move there, because he is in check. So rook had to go to g2 and then queen. So actually, in case you didn't notice, when the knight goes there, black actually has a forced mate in 2. Check, checkmate. All right, let's look at our third game. That was fun. Thank you, Musta and Chess Striker. That was fun. So for our next game, we've got Advait Krishnan 10 versus I Like Chess 1108. So Advait Krishnan 10 versus I Like Chess 11:08. Let's see what happens. Advait plays d4, putting a pawn center. That's fine. You could play d4. You could play e4. They're both center pawns. e5. Setting up a little confrontation right off the bat. That's probably just fine at this level that these players are at. Dx, e5, knight c6, the England gambit. And then white plays knight c3. So probably black was hoping, I'll show you this really neat trap real fast. Black was hoping white would defend the pawn. So the pawn's attacked once, defended once, and then black brings the queen, attacks the pawn a second time, and then white defends the pawn a second time. And then watch this is cool. Queen b4. And that is a nice check plus a fork on b2. And oh, it's actually a triple fork. I'll even highlight it. Why not, right? There we go. Draw some arrows. Why not? I haven't drawn arrows yet today. So we're attacking three things. White can solve those problems seemingly with bishop d2, but then black plays qxb2, right? And then bishop c3, bishop b4. So the bishop cannot take the queen because it is pinned to the king. Kind of cool, huh? So queen d2 takes care of the pin, but herein lies the problem. Bishop takes c3, queen takes c3, and then queen c1. Checkmate. Kind of a neat trap. And I suspect that is what Advait Krishnan was hoping for. However, his opponent takes the first pawn and develops a piece instead. So now I Like Chess needs to think. So I Like Chess was hoping to use that trap in the England gambit. Let's see what happens. All right, takes the pawn. You know, in situations like this, if I'm willing to give away one pawn, I might just give away a second pawn, create some more imbalances, right? And get a lead in development. If you're an attacking gambiting player, that's a way to continue the gambit rather than take the pawn back. White plays e4, knight f6, f4. Gaining the initiative against our knight. Our knight's got to go someplace. Knight c6. And I guess, you know, looking back, let's go back to 4e4. Right about here. Black plays knight f6. And I'm thinking about it now that I'm seeing the other moves. It's easy to think in reverse sometimes, right? Once you've seen that something doesn't quite work out the way you want, then you can think of other choices. Bishop c5 attacks the belly button, right? And there's no d pawn to fork us. I think that probably would be working out better than this, because the problem is you play knight f6, they get f4. There goes one knight, they get e5. There goes the other knight. And now you're retreating 2 times in a row on move 5 and 6. That's not happy if you're a chess player. You're supposed to be developing still. Knight f3, pawn to f6. There's that f6 we could have played a while ago. White does not take, because if he takes, then black has to develop a piece. So white develops another piece himself. He's got 3 pieces developed and a pawn in the center versus only 1 piece developed. Fx e5, knight takes e5. This gives black a little bit of attacking chances. I probably would have played fx e5 because then my knight is still guarding h4, right? Because if you play knight takes e5, then after knight takes e5, fx e5, now black can come out here and bug us with queen h4. It probably won't work out long term, but he could come out and bug us. And who knows? You start bugging your opponent, you start attacking your opponent, and they're more likely to make mistakes. But black plays QE7. Got to analyze your checks, captures, and threats. I think QH4 is probably a stronger move. Although queen E7 is okay. White plays queen D4. C5. Good. Threatening the queen. Queen F4. G5. Does that work? That doesn't work, does it? Because Advait can just take QX G5, QX G5, bishop takes G5. And now white has 2 pieces developed and a pawn in the center. Black not so much. 2 pieces developed, pawn in the center. Black has no pieces developed. No pieces developed. So I like the way this is worked for white. White has done well so far. Bishop G7, there's getting a piece in the game. Bishop F4, defending the pawn. All right, he's defending his center pawn. You know, always maintain a center pawn. That kind of stuff. But as an attacking chess player, I'm a little tempted to look at Bishop C4 because if Bishop takes E5, then when you castle, what is Black supposed to do? You're threatening all sorts of good stuff here. I mean, you could maybe Black plays D6, but then you got Knight D5, right? And then maybe Black plays Knight E7, but then you got Knight C7, right? Check. Maybe Black plays King D8, and then maybe you get to take their rook. Yeah, I think attacking rather than defending there. So 14, Bishop G7, 15, Bishop F4, 15, Bishop H6, saying take my bishop and I get to develop a knight. And they do. So now both sides only have 1 piece developed. So that actually did help Black out. That really did help Black out. Knight D5, threatening that fork we looked at in the other variation. Knight C7, check, winning a rook. Black just castles. Knight F6, check, of course. King G7, castle queenside D6, unlocking the potential of the other bishop. And also undermining the protection of the knight, right? The pawn on E5 is what's defending the knight. Knight H5 check. That maintains the initiative. I mean, it's a check move. But maybe, let's see, rook takes D6, Knight F7, attacking the rook, rook D5, pawn B6, preparing to bring the other bishop in the game. Maybe this isn't so good. Knight D7 attacks the rook, though. That's right. So then bishop takes, and then rook takes, and you got a rook in the 7th rank, pinning a knight, and you're threatening to push a pawn forward or bring the bishop out, add more pressure to the pin. I think that makes good sense, but white, after 19 D6, white played 20, Knight H5, check. And then King G6. Oh no, not rook takes D6 now. Nothing's defending your knight, Advait Krishnan. You got to analyze all the checks, captures, and threats. That's a huge mistake. It's a check, but obviously the king's going to take the knight. And now Black's right back in it, but it's kind of an awkward position. I feel, you know, with the knight on the rim, the other rook's still stuck in the corner. It's a little awkward, but he's right back in it. Bishop E2, check. King G5. And now I Like Chess just made a big mistake, right? You gotta, this is why, as a chess coach, I spend a fair amount of time giving chess puzzles to my students where it's not finding the winning move, it's finding the best defensive option. Maybe you're in check like black is right now. What is your best way out of check? Here, the best way out of check would simply be bishop g4. White could do something fancy here. Rook takes h6, right? King takes h6, bishop g4. And then rook, whoops, no, not rook there, that's silly. Rook f4 is what I was trying to do. Mouse slip, see, it happens to the best of us. And black would have been fine in this position. However, 22, bishop e2 check. This is a problem. This is a problem. King g5, because then there's h4, right? So we're immediately punishing. You'll see where we're going. King f5. Boom. The knight falls to the rook. King takes e5. Rook e1. King f4. Rook takes h7. I think rook f1 check would be better here, right? Because then you're checking the king. King's got to move, and then you win the rook behind it. But that's okay. You know, analyze your checks, captures, and threats, kids. Then you spot all these best moves. Rook takes h7, king g3, bishop f3, bishop f5, rook g7 check, king takes h4 is required, and then rook h1, and yeah, that's game. So interesting. I mean, I guess black could just throw in the bishop h3, and then we could have seen rook takes h3, obviously. But interesting game. Nicely done, Advait Krishnan. And I like chess. You certainly had your opportunities in that game. You've got to analyze your checks, captures, and threats. Very, very important. Analyze all checks, captures, and threats. Not just yours, but your opponent's. Let's look at another game. Okay, we've got Jollification versus Triggered Potato. Jollification versus Triggered Potato. Another game from our camp. All these games were played in our free online summer chess camp. Daily Chess Musings free online summer chess camp. Let's take a look. Jollification plays e4, e5, bishop c4, knight c6, knight f3, so we're transposing into just normal Italian stuff, bishop c5, and then b4, Captain Evans' Gambit. It's a favorite among the swashbuckling pirates with the white pieces. Bishop takes b4, and then pawn c3, bishop a5, d4, d6, castle. So far, all book knowledge for Evans' Gambit. That's not the book move here. Black's supposed to play, I think, knight f6 is what black's supposed to play there. Knight e7. Let's see what happens now. White plays queen b3. It's a nice developing move, and it's a common idea in the Evans' Gambit. But maybe knight g5 is kind of fun, because then if black plays d5, ex d5, knight takes d5, we kind of get this fried liver thing going on. Knight takes f7, king takes f7, queen f3. It's like a fried liver and then some. A fried liver and then some. And I think I saw that in an old correspondence game once. I think it worked out nicely for white. Let's see. So queen b3. 8 queen b3 is what was played. Black just castles. Rook d1, putting the rook in the same file as your opponent's queen. Ex d4, cx d4, bishop g4, pinning the knight. h3, question to the bishop. Bishop takes f3. But then queen can just take, right? So yeah, I don't know if I would take there. Triggered potato. I think I would back away, keep the pin, see what's going to happen, right? That's okay. That's okay. So queen takes f3. A6. Not sure a slow pawn move is black's best option here. Having said that, what would I do? Maybe bishop b6, putting this bishop on this beautiful diagonal with your opponent's king, influencing the center, right? And then white would put their bishop on that diagonal too, more than likely. And then you play d5. And that's playing for a win, is black. I'm not saying black's winning, but that's how you would play for a win. There's black. 12a6 seems kind of defensive and slow. But maybe you see something I don't. Knight c3. Ah, you prepared b5. Okay, so you did have something. You did have something in mind. Bishop b3. King h8. Again, another kind of slower move. Getting the king off the same diagonal as the bishop, but you know, queen d7 unifies your rooks. Finishes your development, right? So I would probably have played queen d7 there. Let's get back. So bishop e3, 14 bishop e3, 14 king h8, 15 knight e2, and black plays f5. All right, so setting up some threats with your rook in the same file as the queen. Really, your bishop really wants to go to b6 very soon. Maybe bishop b6 first. Because then you're putting more indirect pressure on f2 before you play this big f5 move. Let's see. e5. And the time has come for white to push his center advantage. And dx e5, dx e5, knight takes e5, attacking the queen. Queen goes to e3. Queen g3 is also good there. Although queen e3 looks like it sets up a little tactical trap. Let's see what happens. Now, yeah, knight c4. Here we go. So mistake, triggered potato. Here's a mistake. Knight c4. The problem is, and let's see if this, yeah, this does happen. After rook takes d8, knight takes queen, rook takes f8, check, right? And then bishop takes e3. And now white is safely ahead in material, right? So you got to watch out for those checks and long variations. Knight g6, bishop c5, attacking the rook, rook e8, attacking the knight, rook d1, h6. Because obviously, you can't go just taking a free knight. Always be suspicious if your opponent offers you a free piece. Always analyze all checks, captures, and threats, because this is one of these things, right? Remember, you moved your king into the corner. So you got to be extra worried about back rank mates. So after 23, rook d1, which is a good move by white, black plays h6. But then white gets bishop f7, forking the rook and knight. So rook needs to take knight is the only reasonable move, I suppose. Rook d8 check. King h7. Oh, this is pretty. This is a pretty forced combination. Bishop g8 check. Watch this, kids. King h8. Bishop c4 discovered check. King h7. Bishop takes e2. And black plays pawn c6. And it's almost resignable, except we never resign games. And white plays bishop d... What? Jollification. You're forgetting something. Bishops go backwards. There goes Jollification's rook, and just like that, triggered potato is right back in the game. Never let your guard down. We've seen this theme a couple times today. Always analyze checks, captures, and threats. Bishop takes f5. Nice. Pinning the knight. Bishop f6. And Uh-oh, I see a problem here. Yeah. I see a problem. Watch this. H4, king H6, bishop E3, check, king H7, G4, HX, G4, and then H5. See, that's the problem. Very, very tricky. Hard to see that ahead of time. Hard to see that ahead of time. But again, you have to realize if you're a triggered potato, you got to realize that if white's going to win this game, they're going to win it because of this pin on the knight to the king, right? So that's their big chance to win. So we needed to be extra careful there. Having said that, let's see if we can figure this out. All right, so 30, bishop takes f5, bishop f6. Maybe if you're black, here on move 30, instead of bishop f6, you had to play h5. Does that work? Yeah, because then g3, watch. Watch and learn, kids. h4, gx, h4, and then bishop takes h4. And now you're okay as black. You're better than okay. You've got 3 pawns versus 1 over here. You're the guy with the better winning chances. You're going to move your king up. You're going to, if he checks you, you're going to move your bishop back. You would love to trade pieces. Your king's over here to help defend with this 1 pawn. And you got 3 on 1 over here. But again, really hard to notice right here. It's really hard to notice that bishop f6 is a losing move. But very nice play by Jollification here. Wow! Beautiful endgame tactics. And we'll just kind of go through these last few moves here. And actually, there's checkmate. I figured a pawn was going to promote into a queen, but Jollification managed to get the checkmate with just the bishops. All right. Jollification, triggered potato, good lesson. And let's move on to our next game. Let's see what else we have in store. We've got a game by Marcel0707 versus PrincessAmelia 957. Marcel's rating on chess.com is 1560, and PrincessAmelia's rating is 957. Let's see what happens. It's a big rating difference. Marcel plays e4, e5, knight f3, d6, Philidor's defense, bishop c4. That's one of 2 ways of dealing with. I mean, here you have 2 pieces developed, and black doesn't. But you both have 1 pawn in the center. The other one, of course, is from the Opera House game, which is d4, where you have 2 pawns in the center. They only have 1, and you have 1 piece developed. Either way, you can gain a early advantage against Philidor's defense pretty easily, especially if your opponent does not know the ins and outs of it. Having said that, Paul Morphy was a master of both sides of Philidor's defense. But let's see. Bishop g4. Uh-oh. The early pin of the knight, bringing a bishop out before a knight. Sometimes that's trouble. Knight c3. a6. Slow pawn move, princess. Slow pawn move. And actually, yeah. Marcel plays knight takes e5. Looks like someone was paying attention during our lesson on Legal's trap. Because now, yep, bishop takes d1, bishop takes f7, king e7, and knight d5. A beautiful Legal's mate. Nicely done. Everybody who sent me games, learn this trap. Go watch our lesson on De Legal. Again, Princess Amelia, learn that trap. Learn it this time so you don't fall for it again. To everybody who sent me games, thank you very much. Obviously, with some 1,500 players in chess camp and a whole bunch, hundreds and hundreds of games each day, There's just no way I could have shown all of them, but stay tuned because I still may show your game that you sent me during chess camp. Plus, remember, we're going to be having a Friday night Blitz tournament, a Saturday afternoon Swiss tournament, both on chess.com. You can find out about those on dailychessmusings.com. And yeah, go play in those. Send me more games or any other games you play during the week. And your game could be featured on Analyze That. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Analyze That. I have been your host, Chris Torres. Please remember to like and subscribe. See you next Monday.